All right, welcome to this week's Find Your Next Six-Figure Infill Deal. We do this live every Friday at 2 p.m. Mountain Time. So a little bit of background on myself. So my name is Zach Matson. I'm a developer and builder here in Boise, Idaho. Got started back in 2013 buying duplexes, house hacking, living on one side and renting out the other. And then in 2016, I went into full-time flipping. And by 2019 and 2020, I transitioned into infill development. And that's where I saw the most potential to grow my business. And then last year, we really, or I guess it was 2024 now, we really started scaling things up, adding a lot of units to our pipeline. And then last year, we basically saw a lot of opportunities sitting on the market with one-off splits and other projects that weren't necessarily projects that we would take on because it takes some capital and time and energy. But we saw an opportunity where we could actually take our team and our background and skills and do this for other people. So that's essentially why we created this system that we did, is be able to bring this to the everyday investor and capitalize on some of this infill development opportunity that we're seeing. So because of my unique career path, my team and I have hands-on experience in every stage of these deals. So I've analyzed at this point thousands of deals, and we've completed dozens ourselves. I've held rentals, done flips, gone through entitlements, and managed both the horizontal and vertical construction. I'm a licensed general contractor, so we do the construction side of things as well. And so we can control the process from start to finish, from all the way from underwriting all the way through certificate of occupancy. So that's why we can execute on these deal list opportunities in a way that most investors and even most other developers and builders can't. So the format of today's call here, we're going to go over the deal list access deals, how you can get full-time access to our deal list. Then we're going to cover our details of our 6 figures in 36 months or less deal offer with profit guarantee. Then we're going to actually cover this week. We've made some exciting changes actually to the deal list that we think will be even more beneficial for investors and agents and be able to analyze a deal more quickly. So I'm going to cover those quickly. And then we'll cover the infill deal of the week this week, which is a north end lot split that has a profit of 161,000. Or if you wanted to just live in it, live in the new construction house on the north end at 75% loan to value and get all your cash back out, that's also an option on this deal. And then we're going to cover some other infill deals that are active as well. So first things first, in order to get access to our full-time access to our deal list, so we allow realtors and investors to access our list. We just have a couple requirements that you go through in order to have full-time access. Number one, with realtors, we have you either attend in person or rewatch our sessions of 1 and 2 on infill development. Part 1 covers infill development. Part 2 covers our build process. And then we have a deal list Zoom call and recording there where we explain how to review the deal list and just to understand what you're looking at on the list. And then we just have you sign an agreement stating that if you're going to use our strategies with your clients, that you'll introduce us to your buyers early on in the process, so we can basically do everything that we need to do to be able to back everything up. And then we also, as a bonus with realtors, we offer free marketing campaigns provided by us that you can co-brand with you. And that we'll discuss that a little bit further in the training as well. Now, if you're an investor, we have the same training sessions. We have recordings, parts 1, 2, and 3, the same thing, infill development, our build process, and then what you're looking at on the list and how to interpret it. And then we have you make sure you have a signed buyer's representative agreement with a sponsoring realtor. Now that realtor, so if you don't already have a realtor, we can refer you to one of the realtors that have already gone through our training that's already been vetted for our list. If you want to bring your own realtor, you can do that as well. One of the requirements with that is that we have them go through the training as well, just because these deals are a little bit different than your typical home purchase. So we just want to make sure everybody is on the same page and understands how to get the deals done, how to make sure it goes smoothly. And then the last thing we have you do is just sign an agreement that you'll use our services and if you implement our strategy, and also just not sharing any of our information that we've kind of created for this system. So it's kind of an NDA slash non-compete once you engage with us for a specific deal. And then a couple of things to understand as well. So we get paid obviously as contractors. One of the reasons why we're doing this way as well is we do charge a consulting fee that's paid at purchase. That basically covers our due diligence and just the system that we've set up. We'll cover a little bit more on the due diligence side, but the consulting fee that we charge is 15,000 for a lot split up to adding 4 additional units. And then if that goes over 4, so from 5 to 10 units, we charge 25,000 at closing. And then anything over 10, we charge that 25,000 plus an additional 2,000 for each lot. And then we also manage the entitlements. So we go through the entitlements process. We still hire out all the, the professionals like the engineers that we need to hire and everything. We just manage that process and we just charge you an hourly rate for our management time in that. And then we are general contractors, so we're going to charge you our just our normal general contracting rate on the horizontal and the vertical builds. And so that's how we make primarily make most of our money is just by our general contracting. Okay, getting into the 6 figures in 36 months or less deal offer with profit guarantee. So the reason why we created this is basically as we kind of realized there was a lot of opportunity out there, we realized that most investors don't really understand development. And ultimately we wanted to create a system where you don't have to understand development because we do. And so we basically set this up so that it kind of covers the fears of losing money on a bad deal or not knowing the process or making a mistake. Also on projects dragging on too long or contractors cutting corners. And then also just setting up so that you have full control and visibility of the project and costs. So some of the core components of this, so we offer expert deal underwriting. So we vet, analyze, and underwrite every deal on our infill deal list. We also offer negotiation support with your realtor. So a lot of these deals, again, they're a little bit different than a traditional home purchase. So we just give you some guidance on how to get offers accepted and what we need to go through due diligence, that type of thing. And then we offer the step-by-step due diligence. So we have a 19-page due diligence checklist that we go through on every one of these deals. And that's ultimately why we also charge that consulting fee. We actually do the due diligence 90% of it anyway for you. You still do a little bit as far as like aligning the financing and then the property management if it's got a rental piece to it. But that step-by-step due diligence, you're never left in the dark. We share that due diligence checklist with you. And so you can watch as we go through that day by day, and we'll fill it in as we go. Then if you're purchasing a house that or a property that has an existing house on it, which a lot of these are, so if the house needs renovation, we can also renovate the existing house. That's not our full-time gig, but since we do have a background in flipping houses, we still have all those trades available that do remodels as well as on the new construction side or just individually on remodels. So we can manage that process as well. And then we do the entitlement management. So we manage the entitlement process with the city and the other agencies. And then again, going back to the construction side, so we do the horizontal development and the vertical construction. So the horizontal development, that's all the infrastructure that goes in on a lot of this stuff. On most lots, when you split, we have to add infrastructure such as curb, gutter, sidewalk, sometimes widen the street. Paving alleys is common. And then most of the time, of course, you always have to get a sewer line in there, and then power upgrades, that kind of thing. So we GC that whole process. And then same thing on the vertical construction from ground break to finished. We do that vertical construction side. So some of the bonus offers that we give you. So we give you our ultimate guide, introduction to infill development. We'll also provide you with our due diligence checklist. So once you have a property under contract, we give you that checklist so you can follow along with us. And then we give you at the end or before the end of due diligence, we provide you with a one-page underwriting worksheet that we base our guarantee on. This acts as the final go or no-go underwriting for you to base your final investment decision on. And then number 4, so we're also going to give you our entitlement process checklist and projected timelines. So once we start entitlements, we'll put together our checklist, or give you the checklist, and then we'll put together the projected timelines of the project. And then we provide you with our complete construction process and inspection checklist as well. So that's where our project managers at every level of construction will kind of ensure that all the trades are doing what they're supposed to be doing. And then on top of that, we provide you with a third-party new home inspection report. So on every single build, we do a third-party new home inspection report, and we actually do that behind the walls as well. So we actually have 4 different inspections. One is at framing and rough-ins, another at drywall finishing, and then another is at the interior and exterior finishes. And then the final report, sometimes that final report is actually 2 different reports, because we'll have some like final last minute fixes that need to be done, and then a final one that shows that you have a perfect home. And then number 7, so we're going to have our monthly progress call. We meant to do that starting last week. It's still kind of taking me a little bit of time to set up the setup for that. So I think we're going to push it back to the end of this month. And then we'll actually, what we're going to do, that's going to be open to the public as well. So if you've already bought a project, or you're just curious about investing in a project or buying a project, you can join that call, and we basically go over all the details of each project that we have under or in the process. We cover any pertinent details of that, any challenges that we came up with, and the progress made. And then number 8, so we're going to provide you this is where we get into our guarantees. So we provide you with our entitlements guarantee. And so during entitlements, we actually guarantee that if we don't achieve the unit count that we underwrite, we waive our next fee or apply it towards the development costs. So for example, we just had a client close on a deal in Garden City last Friday, actually, where we went through entitlements. We projected to be able to do 5 lots. Now, it's actually, we could theoretically go up to eight lots on that property, but it's going to be extremely tricky. In fact, we've done at least a dozen different layouts, and the 8 lots just doesn't really work. We could potentially get up to 6, but I think the best layout and most profitable is actually with 5. But for some reason we don't get 5 and we only get 4, we actually will apply that fee towards the development costs, or waive it on the next property that he buys. Then our last offer, which is probably the best offer, and something that is pretty unique. I've never heard of anybody doing this, but we've kind of set it up in a way that it works. So we provide you with our underwriting and profit guarantees. So we guarantee that if the project doesn't meet at least 100% of the profit or cash flow projected at final underwriting, we're going to refund you up until it does, and that's up to $50,000 per deal if it's splitting off a lot or 2. We actually do it up to $20,000 per unit if it's more than 2 units, up to a total of $200,000. So if you're doing a 10 house subdivision, we're going to guarantee it up to $200,000 total, even though we might say that so let's say, for example, in that situation, if we guarantee that you're going to make $300,000 on that deal, we're going to guarantee that $300,000. And if it only makes 100,000 at the very end, we're going to kick in that extra 200,000 to get you up to that 300,000. So your experience in that, so in all this, so your role is that you make the big decisions, we do the heavy lifting. So you actually buy the deal, you're just hiring us to do everything. So you maintain full control of it. The target on all these deals is 6 figures in 36 months or less. Now, some of these deals, like the one today, we actually have a route where we can actually cut that in half or even a little bit less. We had a deal, I think 2 weeks ago, where it was 12 months or less. And so most of them are longer. Development just takes a little bit longer. We'll cover that a little bit later too. But it typically takes up to 3 years, and even longer than that if you're doing multiple phases. And then you have protection with visibility into cost timelines and progress, and because you own the deal. So again, you hold full ownership. We only profit when the deal performs and you profit. So our incentives are aligned with yours. And then why us? So we specialize in infill development. We specialize in small multifamily ADUs, subdivisions, all the exact strategies that Boise and other cities around the area here are encouraging. And we've already figured out the business and the systems in order to do this for you. Okay, I'm going to get into, does anybody actually have any questions before I move into the updates on the list here? So anybody that's watching this either live or online, so we just this week added um, some details to our infill deal list. So I'm just going to cover briefly what those are, and then probably in the next few weeks, I'm going to probably re-record our part 3 session where we cover the details on how to analyze this. But I'm going to get into the share screen here first, so I can show you what I'm talking about. So one of the things that I was doing previously is every one of these tabs down at the bottom um, kind of looks at different opportunities or different types of opportunities. That's still the same. We still have, so we analyze single family splits. This is like splitting off 1 or 2 units off of a house that's already existing on a large lot. Then we have the small multifamily, so adding 2 to 4 units, like duplexes, triplexes, fourplexes. And then we have larger subdivisions. So this is like typically 3, 4, 5 plus units that we can split off of an existing property. And then we have vacant land opportunities. And then one thing we added last week was this multifamily tab. Now we haven't done any underwriting on this yet, so that's coming. I thought I would have this ready this week, but it's not quite there. And honestly, I don't know. There's maybe one deal on here that pencils, the others I'm not too excited about anyway. But that's coming as well as larger multifamily. So multifamily, that's 5 plus units. But what I did is I actually previously all these different tabs had different underwriting along the top. They were all similar, but they weren't all exactly the same. So I've actually kind of made this more uniform where every single tab you're looking at the same numbers and the same layout. We have the same numbers here. What I did additionally is we actually created a calculator to be able to analyze quickly a payment. So we can adjust this for like when rates go down or up. Because previously what we were doing, we were just underwriting at something, but then we couldn't go back and change anything without basically going back into a separate calculator. So we basically added this calculator where we can go with the current rate and just type that in, and then that changes the numbers automatically. We also have it calculated for the tax and insurance. And then the other thing we did is we added a column for, so previously with our cash flow or our monthly cash flow on the rental side of things, we weren't factoring in vacancy or management costs or any maintenance. And so we basically added that column separately. And so you can we show the true cash flow if you're not going to self-manage. So this column is still, pretty accurate if you're going to self-manage and you're not going to, pay a management fee or worry too much about that other stuff. But then this column here will actually show if you manage it, what their true cash flow is. Now, I obviously haven't updated all these properties. I'm just going to update as we go along. So as we add properties to this, you'll see this stuff updated. This also has an automatic cap rate calculator based on the NOI, and so it's based on the NOI of the property and what you end up owning it for. This is the debt that you would assume on the property. So that's based on that number. So most of these you're going to walk in with equity. It might still have negative cash flow, but you're walking in with equity. And then we also analyze these with short-term rental rates. And what we did on this one is we actually went with the NOI on this. So we actually updated this as well. So like this one is actually after all of the expenses that we would assume for property management, taxes, insurance, the use tax, whatever the city charges you for like a hotel rate or whatever. So those are the columns that we updated on every one of these deals, and then each of these tabs on every on all these opportunities are going to have those same numbers. So you can quickly look at this and see what your cash flow is if you're going to self-manage. Let me go back to this where it actually has it filled out. So this is your cash flow if you were to self-manage. And this is also, this is based on the new house, not the existing. That's a little that's different because we're expecting that you're going to sell off the existing house. But then this is your expected management costs if you manage it, so your true cash flow there, and then your cap rate. Okay, so any questions with that? Feel free to speak up, unmute yourself anytime too. This is I'm going to be talking a lot, but if you do have questions that come up, feel free to unmute yourself and speak up. Okay, so the deal of the week this week is in the North End on 28th Street. So this just came on the market, I think last night. I think it's ultimately going to go pending probably over the weekend, just like the one 2 weeks ago. This is a pretty cute house, really cute house, actually, especially, North End has these cute houses. The paint I'd probably update a little bit, but it's a cute house either way, but it sits on a large lot. So let me show you this lot that it sits on. So it sits on a large lot. Now, theoretically, there's actually enough space right here where we could actually split this lot off without doing anything with the house. We would tear down this structure. This is a carport that I think they've actually turned into like some kind of enclosed back porch or maybe living space. Ultimately, that could actually theoretically that could stay. It just couldn't be the garage anymore. So we would either way put in a driveway over here. So that's how we would address the parking for this one. We could still, without doing anything else, we could split this off, and this would be I think a 30, 18, 38-foot wide lot, I think. And then we could actually build about an 18-foot wide house here, which is about normal for the row homes you see all over the North End and Southeast Boise and the Bench. All those row homes are typically anywhere from 15 to 19 feet wide, depending on when they were built and the setbacks and that kind of thing. So that 18-foot wide, we already have floor plans that we can do for that. We can create floor plans. They're very functional. So if anybody's not used to seeing those are quite common. And in fact, I think there's actually some, oh, I guess not. I thought I previously saw some right here. These are a little bit wider than that, but there are row homes kind of all over the North End. This isn't in the historic district, so we don't have to worry about that. What we did on our underwriting, we actually have this, so we moved this closer to the property line. We would tear this down, just move the house, and that actually allows us to create a little bit more substantial house. Ultimately, we can build a 28-foot, 9-inch wide house right here, so it'd be more like the width of this one here. So it'd be a little bit more substantial and get a higher resale and be a little bit more appealing for the area, I think. So that's how we underwrote it, is just moving this over just slightly. So it's kind of like, I don't know if anybody's driven through the North End, but occasionally you see a house up on stilts where they add a basement. It's kind of a similar process to that, where you jack up the house and then they would actually move it off of the foundation. More than likely, they would just kind of lift it up, rotate it. We would dig all that out, move the foundation or re-pour the foundation for the new new move, and then just set it right back down in place and then reconnect everything. So pretty easy process. The other thing with this property is, because this is a 2-bedroom house, this is actually probably an ideal situation that we could, and we underwrote it like this, where we could actually do a minor land division on this one. Now, without getting too far into the weeds with minor land divisions and the new zoning, basically the city, when they redid the zoning code in December 2023, is they redid the process for minor land divisions. So the only way you can do that easier process is if you do the affordability incentives with the city. And with this being a 2-bedroom house and it's an existing house, this is actually perfect for that. I think we can utilize that, still resell this at full market value, and you're still using that incentive to quicken the time for being able to do all this. And so we can complete all this. The minor land division typically takes 6 months. What we'll be required to do is move the house first, but we'll go through the due diligence with the city first, make sure that we can do the minor land division. Then we'll move the house, complete that minor land division process. So that whole process would take probably about 7 months. And then you're at 7 months to build. And then if you're going to sell this house, then you factor in usually about 3 months to get it marketed and sold and closed. So that whole process, typically it's going to be 15 to 18 months likely, which is shorter. Most of the time with development deals, you have a year to entitle, then you have a year to put in the infrastructure. So like on this lot, if we did a subdivision, we'd have to widen the road, do curb gutter sidewalk. We might still actually have to do that, but minor land division just requires a lot less. So I don't know that they're going to make us widen the road and do the sidewalk still. They might. I don't recall exactly, but I have that factored into the underwriting. But you can get that approved a lot quicker essentially because you don't have to put it all in first and then get the plat signed. So that's usually a year, and then you have a year to build and exit. So typically you have these subdivisions typically take 3 years, or best case is like 2.5 years. So with that minor land division, you shave off a year to year, well, a year and a half to 2 years typically off that whole process. So the numbers on this, how that works. So we have the total out of pocket just under 165,000. And what that is that is 15% down on the purchase. And then it's paying for the entitlements costs out of pocket, and then paying the cost to move the house out of pocket. So this renovation costs factors in all the cost to move it. This more than likely costs less than that. But then this also covers like doing an interior repaint on the house as well. And then once that is done, we can go through the minor land division. Once that lot is a separate lot, you can then resell that house. You get back about almost $50,000 when you go to sell it. So then you're in the deal for even less money because you get a lot of your money back. And then this cost also factors in paying your mortgage payment. And then if you can rent the house essentially for that time difference between when you have it moved and when the minor land division is complete. So that's factoring in that. So if you notice here on the existing house profit, you actually end up losing money on the existing house. That's primarily because of this difference here. But it's also factored in because we're essentially going to move it, but we're not actually adding value to the existing house by moving it. It's not taking away value, it's just not adding value. So you're going to have some costs and then you're not really adding value there. We will add value because we'll clean it up and make it a little bit nicer. But then you have your closing costs when you go to sell it too. So if you go to sell it in 6 months, you're not gonna see a huge increase in the market typically. Well, I'd say it's more like 9 to 12 months from now. So where the primary profit here is on the new construction. And so we looked at different new construction in the area. There's actually a really good comparable on Neff Street from just a couple months ago on new construction. I think it was 2,600 square feet. So we based this comp off of this. So this would be, we could actually go a little bit larger than this 2,400, but we kept it at 2,400 on this one, and then doing it as 4-bedroom, 3.5 bath. So 925 resale. There's actually comps. There was a comp that this could comp out potentially all the way up to like 1.1 million. We wanted to be conservative going in. But I think this is probably the baseline of what this specific property would be worth. Okay. So we have the purchase price here, entitlement costs, the development costs. This is the horizontal work. So this is factoring in even putting in having to widen the road right in front of the house there, and then putting in curb gutter and sidewalk. Again, with the minor land division, we might be able to kind of skip some of that stuff, but that's still factoring in those costs. And then also adding in like a sewer line, an additional sewer line and the power, that fun stuff. And then you could theoretically sell this lot. Once, instead of building it out, you do basically make the majority of your money on the build. But that is something that you could do. The nice thing with the development is you have multiple exit strategies. So you could actually, if anything changes in the market or changes with your, situation, ideally, because we make the most of our money on the build, and that's where, we're primarily doing this is for people to go all the way through the vertical. But if something changed, you can always exit here and you still have a lot of cushion to make money there. Now, this deal, some of these deals, because you have so much equity, they end up being really good rentals and then cash flow really well. That's not the situation on this one, even though you're in it for, essentially you're in it for just under 600,000. You, or refinancing at 600,000, your payment is still about 4,300 on that, based on, and this is kind of taking a guesstimate at taxes just around town on the percentage, because more than likely this house is going to be worth that 925. So this is what we would expect your property tax to be on that. But because of taxes and insurance, your payment gets up pretty high. And the average rental price in that area for a 4-bedroom is 3,800. So this wouldn't necessarily be a good rental. Also doesn't look like it'd be a great short-term rental, but if you're going to live in it, you're actually getting a stellar deal. Because what you could do, so if you do this 925 value and take 75% loan to value, you get up to, that basically gets you to 700,000. Well, if you take this refinance debt plus your cash in here, that's about 700,000. So you could theoretically refinance 100% of your cash out and be at 75% loan to value on that new house. You'd still have a ton of equity and not have any additional capital in there. And then you're obviously your monthly payment would be a little bit higher, but you'd have no additional cash in it. And then you own a house for 225,000 below market value. So as a live-in unit, this could be great. Or as just a property, a new build flip, it's also a great return there. Okay, any questions about this specific deal?
I have a question for you.
Yeah.
So do you have relationships with lenders that you could do like a DSCR and only put 15% down?
Yeah, we actually we were previously analyzing these at 20 and 25% down. But we actually have another investor that bought a deal with 15% down. So that's an active deal that somebody just bought with 15% down. So it's not a DSCR, it's an investment loan. So it's an investment property loan rather. So it's kind of like the traditional where they used to take, they don't really look at the DSCR numbers. They look at basically kind of like a normal investment property where, a lot of times that's 20% down, sometimes 25% down, but there's a lender that actually will go 15% down. So even though it's negative cash flow, you can get away with doing less money down. And in this case, I would say that's worthwhile because it takes less cash. Now, if you were looking at this as a long-term rental, I would probably do more money down, and then so you're not losing money on the cash flow every month. Because ultimately, if you look at this is over the course of 12 months, there's a difference of, negative $18,000 there. So that's additional cash that you have to pay. But if you look at an additional 10% down on 500,000, that's 50 grand out of pocket as opposed to the 18 grand out of pocket on the payment.
I have another question for you, Zach. So is that same lender willing to let you do the land division and sell off the other property? Does that make sense what I'm asking?
Yeah, so you would be doing the land division out of pocket. So you're just paying cash for that. Because this is a minor land division, it actually works a little bit different where you can actually split it without having to put the infrastructure in. So on normal subdivisions, you actually have to have the curb gutter sidewalk all in before you can split it. On manual land division, that's not the case. And so you can actually split it, sell it off, and then you're out of this original loan now also, and you don't have a monthly payment on that. And then you're just into that land for whatever it costs to split it.
Got it. Makes sense. Thank you.
Yep. Okay, I'm going to cover just briefly the deal of the week last week. It is on the market still this week. This has been actually on the market for quite a while. They originally started about 100,000 more than this. And so we actually have a strategy where somebody could house hack this, live in it and split it and basically walk away with very little out of pocket. So this is just getting like an FHA loan on the purchase, or either FHA or a traditional mortgage. So kind of minimizing your out of pocket costs, but then you could split it, sell it, and make almost 200 grand with only putting essentially 73,000 out of pocket. Or this is the traditional mortgage route or investment mortgage route um, on this one. So a little bit more cash, a little bit less return on this, but that's still possible on this deal. And then for single splits, that's about it. There's this property is off market. I think the sellers are kind of wanting a little bit too much, but this is actually a deal where it could be done. This is kind of interesting because they own the lot next door that's already split. And then there's a regular house that needs a remodel. And so this is actually kind of like a two prong approach where you can fix up the existing house, sell it, basically get all your capital back out of it, and then you're in the land for free essentially, because you actually own that land. Or sorry, it's already split, so there's not actually any requirements to split it, so you don't have to subdivide it, and then we can build and sell the house. So if they ever agree on a price, this might actually be a deal again. Josh posted something about the loan to value, and I think I see where he's getting at, but we'll talk about that here in a second when I finish covering these. Okay, and then small multifamily. There's really not any deals currently active here. This is a possibility where you can build I think a duplex plus an ADU. The problem is just this area of town. It just doesn't make sense to build because you're in a negative equity position. Just not a great neighborhood for multifamily. And then on subdivisions, so this one is pending. This is a deal a few weeks ago. This one is still active on Hill Road. This is an interesting one again too. It's a little bit higher purchase price, which is probably why, a lot of people haven't looked at it. But somebody that's got, a 500,000 to spend and do a subdivision, we could essentially get this done. And then we are subdividing five these higher end home, subdividing and building five of these higher end homes. Each one profits a little over 100,000. So when it's all said and done, you're actually profiting about 500,000 on a 500,000 investment. Let's see. This is a deal I'm currently working on. I can't share anything yet, but this is actually pretty exciting. Um, on the bench. And then this was actually a lot so this is off market, but we know the seller wants to sell this. I don't know the people that bought the property next door that was actually on the market. I don't know if they bought this or not. So this could theoretically be sold. I'm just not quite sure yet. One of the updates I made too is like if the sales price is just completely outrageous, I'm starting to highlight that in a bright orange color because this price is probably overpriced by, let's see, 1.5 million. Or close to it. The land value, there's a little bit of land value there, but a lot of sellers and a lot of realtors unfortunately think land is worth more than it is before it's improved. So a lot of realtors don't understand in order to get buildable lots, you have to get it entitled. You have to put in all the infrastructure. So you have to put in roads, sidewalks, street lights, sewer, water, electrical. A lot of times you have to put in fire hydrants. So a lot of a lot of people just don't understand the costs and what you have to do to get something buildable. And so they look at this and say, oh, you could put in a bunch of houses here. Well, yeah, but you have to put in $1 million worth of infrastructure to get it there first. Um, so anyway, we kind of start highlighting that where it's just completely infeasible by the price that they're asking. That's going to sit on the market forever. And then we have vacant land. So these are deals that don't have an existing structure or the structure has to be torn down. There are actually a couple deals this week that popped up. This one on Arcadia is actually pretty interesting. I was actually contemplating making this one the deal of the week because it actually sits on 3 original lots. Um, so the house is in okay condition. But it says it is being sold as is, so there's probably some repairs that need to be made, but it's actually a pretty decent price for just tearing down the house and having 3 buildable lots. I've done a lot of builds and flips in this neighborhood, so I'm super familiar with the neighborhood. And this is another one where it's already on 3 existing lots, so there's not a subdivision that you have to do. You just revert back to the original lots of record, which is just a administrative procedure with the county and city, and then you have buildable lots. Now they're still going to make you pave the alley. So like this is alley has the alley load, so they're still make you do that. But aside from that, they're not going to have all the requirements that a subdivision typically does. Well, that's going. I'm going to just kind of cover the costs on this. So what's appealing about this one, like it's not a huge return, but what's appealing is it could be done in less than a year or a year or less. That administrative split will take a month to 3 months. But then you can build 3 houses. This is also, this is pretty conservative on the resale price, which is what we want going in. And then we just have this is if you get a loan on the land. So you have some cash out of pocket. So ultimately, 3 houses times this would be pretty close to 100,000. And that existing house, I bet we could actually sell for at least 10,000 and have somebody haul it off, as opposed to tearing it down and having that expense. Or worst case, I think you can have the fire department come in and burn it down and remove the debris for free. But you just have some expense on there if you do finance the land. Let's see if here it is. So this is the existing house. Well, this is actually 3 separate lots. It already has curb gutter sidewalk. This is alley access right here. I think the pavement ends right about here. So we would actually have to just pave to the end right here, but then we would have alley load garages and 3 houses that face Arcadia Street here on the bench. And then anybody that wanted to do something like this and keep these as rentals, you could always put like ADUs above the garages as well. So there's always some additional opportunity for rentals and a lot of these. Let's see. A lot of these other ones on this one don't necessarily make sense. There is, when I redid this, it kind of messed up a little bit with the numbers here, but um, there are a couple deals in Garden City currently that are mid-sized developments. So if people are interested in those, typically you need a little bit more cash, usually about between 350 and $1 million, depending on the deal. But if anybody's working with a little bit more cash, you typically see a little bit better returns on those. Um, and you have a little bit more economies of scale there. A lot of times the same returns, you're just working with more economies of scale. So you can double your money if you're working with bigger chunks of money quicker. Okay, and then the multifamily, we're gonna analyze these further as we go here. The only one I think that could potentially make a little bit of sense, and even that I'm not sure before I underwrite this, because they are actually asking a little bit much for the townhome lots on this. But I think it could possibly make sense because this one actually has 7 townhome lots and then 22 unit apartments. And so 29 units total, but I think by building and selling the 7 townhomes, we could come close to the apartments penciling really well. So I'll have to analyze that one a little bit further. The rest of these are apartment slash condo deals. Some of these, as condos would probably work, but most of them as apartments. With where commercial lending is right now, they're probably not going to pencil very well. That's just based on I analyzed a few deals last year. When I was factoring in rates being around 7%. Now they're probably 6.5 on that commercial multifamily. So it's getting closer to probably penciling, but I think we're going to need it to be in the mid to high fives in order for a lot of this stuff to pencil. So, um, okay, so I just wanted to address Josh made a comment. So in his experience, the lender wanted me to keep loan to value the same, which is, yeah, that's correct. So he said when he created the new value, his LTV on his house was now 60 instead of 90. So to sell off the land, they wanted you to keep the LTV at the new 60%. Oh, so to sell off the land, you actually have to pay down the house. Um, Interesting. Um, so you'd have to refinance the house, which on most of these we're looking at selling off the existing house versus or refinancing his existing house. It looks like in this case, maybe they would have, um, yeah, maybe we'll talk about this further, Josh, at some point, but that's, yeah. So they're basically when you do splits on subdivisions, you essentially have to put in all the infrastructure and now you've created value. And then what happens is your ratios change. So a lot of times, so that lender, in order to have to the lender has to sign off on that final split or that final plat or deed, I should say, in order to get the plat recorded. And so in order for them to do that, they have to sign a partial reconveyance. And so that partial reconveyance, that's when those loan to value numbers pop up. So they recognize that you create value there. And then if you're going to keep the house, a lot of times they are going to require that you pay down the house to that new value, even though you created that land or created that value in the land. So kind of a weird situation, but then that's ultimately like why a lot of times we have you sell off that original house, because ultimately on most of these deals, you're buying the house in order to for the investment of developing it and building out the new houses. That's where the money is, not on that original house. Most of the time, that original house isn't the best investment. So we're going to have you sell it off. Now they still have to sign the partial reconveyance in order to record that deed. And so you might have to pay them a payment up front and then you get that back when you sell it immediately. So that's just one thing that you kind of consider. And we want to have those conversations with the lenders at the beginning to understand what their policy is and how they look at that. Okay, I think that's pretty much everything that I wanted to cover this week. Does anybody have any questions about specific deals or the list or any general questions? I'm gonna stop the recording here, but feel free.